Hi everyone, I just wanted to give you guys some information on some puppies today. So puppies are, well, they're puppies. They're a whole bunch of fun. They're always super cute. But there's also some stuff we need to remember about puppies, right? So of course, we have to remember that puppies need training and they need routine and they also need structure. So without structure, your puppy's probably going to misbehave and, they're not going to be able to learn their potty training nearly as quickly. And as well, they could miss out on some of that socialization that they need early on to be able to be a quote unquote normal dog. Without socializing your dog or your puppy, then they're going to be afraid of a lot of things later on in life. So let me just talk about real quick kind of the stages of puppyhood. So when puppies are born, their eyes are closed. They can't really take in a whole lot of information other than scent and touch. So when the puppies open their eyes and their ear and they're able to hear, that's when socialization starts. So from the period that they can hear and see to about 12 to 16 weeks, depending on the dog, your dog is in the period called socialization period. So that basically means your puppy is fearless. They're not worried about everything else in the world. They're more curious about everything than they are nervous. So we got little Chewbacca here yawning. So since they're fearless and curious about everything, this is a perfect opportunity to start introducing them to new things, such as different objects, different smells, new people, and of course through this whole period, not only do we want to expose them, but we want to make sure that they have a good association with it. So if your puppy seems a little nervous around something new, that's right. Let them take their time with it. Because if we terrify them just by exposing them to it, chances are later down the line that they're going to be terrified of something super silly. So like say, for example, my dog Midnight, she was afraid of golf carts because she had never seen one before. So by the time I got her, she was way past her socialization period, so she didn't quite have the ability to overcome that nearly as quickly. Because where we got her, it was a nice and rural area, and of course we lived in an apartment complex at the time that had golf carts running all over the place. So every time she would see one of these, she was absolutely terrified. So it just takes exposure, but positive exposure. That's what we want to see, because if we're just throwing our dogs let's say into something super terrifying, what would be terrifying for a puppy? Maybe like a blow dryer. If you take your dog to the grooming salon, they've never worked with a blow dryer before. I know from working in grooming myself, puppies are the most dramatic. So they're going to act like they're absolutely dying because it's so terrifying, because they haven't had that experience before. So basically what you want to do is you want to slowly work them up to be used to that blow dryer. So then, when they're a full grown 80 plus pound dog, that they're not flailing and alligator rolling or, acting terrifying, threatening to bite when they get blow dried in a grooming salon or at home or wherever it is that they might be exposed to that. So basically, socialize your dogs, make sure it's positive. And so after the socialization period, they're going to start, they're going to go through what's called a fear period. You'll notice your dog is a little more skittish. Things might be more surprising. They just won't be nearly as adventurous. And so, this is also a good time to take extra time with them, to slow things down, to let them explore things at their own pace. So if you notice they're afraid of, say, for example, again, golf carts, you know, just wait them out and you know, reward them when they're giving you the correct behaviors. The worst thing you can do for them if they're terrified is comfort them, because that's going to be reinforcing the fear. It's going to be giving them praise for being afraid of something, right? So, with that said, praise for the right things. You know, you can say, "Oh, good job." You can talk to them in that nice soft voice. Once they calm down, you know, start from a distance and slowly work your way up. So, fear period, depending on the dog, it can last for a couple weeks. It's totally normal. You'll notice kind of a change. And then once your dog hits about the 6-month mark, that's when they start to hit maturity. It's referred to as sexual maturity. Now, I'm sure you've heard, this doesn't mean that, you know, your dog can go out and be bred. I really highly do not recommend that, especially if you're not, you know, if you're unaware of everything that goes into breeding a dog. So 6 months is definitely not where you want to start with that anyway. So 6 months, your dog hits sexual maturity. Chances are, if you have a female, she'll go into heat. Males will start showing more typical male dog behaviors, probably marking, you know, lifting the leg, you know, scenting, looking for females, things like that. So, you know, this, depending on what your vet's recommendation is, this might be a good time to spay or neuter, but you know, that's up to you and your vet. Go with their recommendation. Especially, you know, sometimes it depends on the breed of dog as well as to when you want to do that. And so you'll notice some behavioral changes. You know, they'll start looking for a mate just out of pure instinct. And of course, you know, female heats are not usually very fun. So definitely be cautious around that. You know, you want to, if your dog does go into heat, you want to make sure you limit their access to the outdoors, because they're going to be more likely to roam, and so on and so forth. So, you know, with that said, the next stage is, so after the 6 months, excuse me, let me take a step back here. Once they hit the 6-month mark, they're basically going to be teenagers until about a year and a half to 2 years old is what I see a lot. I mean, it can be a dramatic change that you notice your dog's behavior starts becoming more of a quote-unquote adult dog behavior, more calm, more relaxed. But it also might not, depending on the dog. Again, this is a case-by-case basis. You might notice something extraordinary, or it might be super minimal. Again, with my dog Midnight, she's always been a special case. She went from shredding every single toy she had, and then almost as soon as she turned 2 years old, she decided she wanted to keep all of her toys nice, so she could have them for longer or something. I don't know. So you know, it depends on the dog. You might notice changes like that. You might not, and that's okay if you don't notice a whole lot. But you know, it's just stuff to be aware of. Your dog's definitely going to be more like a teenager when they're younger, between 6 months and a year and a half. And then they're going to calm down around a year and a half to 2 years old. Again, this depends on the dog, the breed, you know, how they were raised. Sometimes environmental factors can play a role in this, but it's definitely something to be aware of. Let's see, what else? So training with your puppy starts as soon as you get your puppy. When you get them, you know, that depends on you and where you get them from. Generally, you don't want to get a dog until they're at least 8 weeks old. This is mostly because since your puppy needs socialization, they need to learn how to properly dog from their litter mates and their mom. So, you know, mama dog's going to be able to teach them, you know, dog manners, as well as their litter mates. They're going to learn how to play with their litter mates. The best time to get a dog is between 8 to 12 weeks. Well, not 12 weeks, 10 weeks. Because then they have that extra socialization. And they're... he wants to be the star of the show. And they're going to be able to... We'll scoot you over, buddy. They're going to be able to communicate with dogs better. Let's see. So... once you get your dog at 8 to 10 weeks old, then you're going to want to start training. As soon as you get your dog, whether you know it or not, training begins. If you let your puppy jump up on you and you give them attention for it, they're going to learn that, oh, jumping gets me attention. And so they're going to continue this behavior for the rest of their time with you, unless you decide to change that. And then, so, you basically want to make sure you're training your dog the proper way as soon as you get your dog. If you don't, then they're going to run amok in your life and they're going to drive you nuts. But of course, train your dog to what you want your dog to be. If, you don't have to have super precision with anything, really. If you're fine with your dog, jumping up on the couch, that's up to you. Ultimately, the way you train your dog is your choice. However, I personally believe that a gold standard for every dog, especially, those of us who live in a military lifestyle, is the Canine Good Citizen from AKC. This is, it's basic commands, it's being sociable, and it's just being a well-mannered dog, sitting for greeting, walking on a leash properly, being able to be groomed, being able to greet a stranger, laying down, staying, coming when called. Coming when called is probably your most important one that you can ever teach your dog. It's most important and it's most difficult as well. But more on that in, I guess, a later episode. So, with that said, train. It doesn't have to be what everyone else thinks your dog should be trained like. It should be what you want your dog trained like. Of course, this doesn't mean go and train your dog as a service dog or protection dog without trainer supervision, especially if you have no experience with this. And again, I always highly recommend having a dog trainer there. And talk to them about what you would like your dog to be trained in, how you would like them trained, and things like that. So then they're going to be able to give you the best recommendation and best ways to work with your dog, per how you want to do it. So not everyone wants to use prong collar. Not everyone wants to teach their dogs off leash work. Not everyone wants to even use a clicker. Sometimes clickers just can be too much, but that's totally up to you and your circumstances. But just keep at it, and your puppy is going to turn into a well-mannered adult. But of course, training doesn't just stop once you reach the point that you think you're done training. Training will continue for the rest of the dog's life, whether you know it or not. So definitely keep up with it. Even if you don't seek out a trainer, you definitely need to be training with your dog. But if you guys have any questions about anything I've discussed today, please drop a comment below, and I am happy to answer questions anytime. But other than that, have a great day.